And then the science just kind of, I just started looking at all these different pieces about how do I get under the conscious mind.
It was intuitive for you.
Yeah, very intuitive.
That's neat.
And
so that's what age did you get married at?
Say it again.
What age did you get married at?
My first marriage, 23.
Okay.
I was married for 34 years, and then divorced, and then at 57, started to really blossom. I mean, it's when I moved into Manhattan and just started doing everything.
All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, welcome into Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I'm excited to have Tina Greenbaum on today. Mastery Under Pressure is her topic, is her company. And, if you're struggling with pressure, then obviously you're going to want to tune into this. If you struggle when you get into a pressure-filled situation, it's going to be fun to unpack from her some secrets, some tips, some strategies to make sure that you're well prepared to deliver well in those moments. Now, before we dive into that, I also want to say we probably just had the hardest cut we've ever had in terms of doing our little show presentation and moving in. Not Jaime's fault at all, but I do want to make sure we circle back to that because Tina was in the middle of her story about how her marriage progression transpired, and it has a lot to do as well with some professional background of helping people under pressure. So I'm excited to circle back to that. Tina, remind me, please do. And without further ado, let's talk about some of these sponsors that we have. So Icon Maker Live was a phenomenal conference that we just had last week in Charleston, South Carolina. More importantly, it was virtual, and they used this virtual studio in in Charleston. And it's state of the art. It's like a $1.5 million studio where you got multiple rooms. And the strategic partnership that they had with this building, with this company called Sage, was awesome. And it gave us all these different screens. So as you had a green screen behind you, or a big screen where you could basically play weatherman and point to your presentations. You had two panels on the left and right that had the comments coming in on one side, the notes coming in on the other, and then you had a series of screens in front of you where you could see everybody participating in this conference, including yourself. And you had cameras on all sides and another guy walking around with his harness camera to help make sure that we got all this amazing content out of it. And Icon Maker Live is run by Tom Matson and Cheryl Pluff and Danella Burnett. And all three of those individuals, when they had their stage times, delivered extremely well with what it is that they were teaching. I would say, I don't, ego wants me to say, don't admit this, Jackson, but I'm going to. Tom Matson, with his ability to run a mastermind, talk about your Dream 100, help entrepreneurs understand how to raise finances. My thoughts were, man, I hope I have this knowledge and expertise within the next 8 to 15 years. I hope I can do this as well as he does. But I got to make sure that I'm on the ball. I got to make sure that I'm delivering my best and able to do it. And it's not about being as good as or better than Tom. It's about being my best self. But that's how much I admire him, Cheryl, and Danella as leaders in their respective fields. They're freaking amazing. So I highly recommend checking out what Icon Maker Live's up to, because they will run it back within 6 months. And I'm sure they'll have some online progression as well. If you haven't heard of it, make sure to check out what they're doing at iconmakerlive.com. Capsho, another one of our sponsors. Capsho is ranked number 1 for podcast content marketing, podcast content delivery by digitalmarketer.com. So it's CAPSHO.com. I highly recommend going and checking out. We're going to have an affiliate link in the notes. You get 3 credits for free. And ultimately, this isn't just for podcasters. This is for repurposing any of your expert content. So if you've done a presentation, if you've done a TED Talk, for instance, you can take that TED Talk, or you can take that presentation, that video file, that audio file, you can upload it to Capsho. And as you see on your screen right now, if you're watching in on this, it takes you through an interface where it's a click of the button to generate all of your social media posts, to generate your blog posts. You can generate 4 different types of blog posts based on the need that you have. Listicles is one of them, how-tos. Honestly, I can't remember the other 2 types of blog posts that are super prominent, but that's also what's fantastic about Capsho is they teach you as you go. They start to show you, here's the strategy that not only we follow, but also our clients are following. Hey, by the way, we just saw Molly Mahoney and her excellent testimony on there. She was in the Capsho community while I was at the conference and Icon Maker Live, and she was teaching a 4-day workshop, 1 hour per day, of how to maximize live streams and do Super Bowl live stream and how to integrate it with your experience with Capsho. The dedication that Capsho puts into helping people win is absolutely phenomenal. I love the culture of the company. In fact, at their 1-year anniversary, they surprised all the podcasters who use it, and they actually gave us our first review ever on iTunes, or what's it called now? Apple Podcasts. So that was pretty cool. I was like, man, they're really going above and beyond to make sure that we love the experience. And lastly, I would like to do the same for the Water Project. The Water Project, definitely take a look and see what the Water Project's up to. Go see what projects are in need right now. You'll find tribes or people, communities, nations of 500 plus people who need access to clean drinking water, who don't have it, or have to walk miles and miles in order to get the water, which takes kids out of school, which removes mothers from being able to spend time with their kids. They have to worry more about survival than the first world problems that we get to worry about. So this is a great way to just give $1 or $15, whatever you can, whatever's you're capable of doing and aligned with your heart. If you give it one of these specific communities, the cool thing is they'll also send you updates of what's going on with the progress of your specific project, and you get to watch what the community looked like before and what the community ends up achieving afterwards, and you get to see the effect of the smiles on their faces, the joy that they have just from getting a simple glass of water. So I hope you take the chance to learn more about it. Also, if you aren't in a position to donate to it, then you probably are in a position to share it, unless you're driving right now. If you're driving, don't do that. Maybe do it after, but please share this with others. You never know how many friends or family members will also contribute to such a great cause. And as I like to say, many hands make light work. So that also means many shares can do the same thing. Without further ado, we're going to bring Tina Greenbaum on. She is a mentor, coach, and trusted advisor, CEO of Mastery Under Pressure. And this is a management coaching program for high-performing executives who need to refine and master their interpersonal and interdepartmental skills, not only to excel individually, but to empower their teams and associates. She's worked with athletes, artists, speakers, and other high achievers who want to be skillful at performing under pressure. She's gone through programs of Stephen Kotler's at Flow Research Collective. I have a close personal story with that group. Zero to Dangerous is the program that she went through. And that just kind of pulls everything between us a little bit more full circle. But when it comes to being a master of high pressure situations, that's not my forte to teach. I'm kind of just good at it, to be honest with you. And so let's bring Tina on. Let's learn how the heck you can transform your mind, your brain, your heart, whatever it's needed in order to perform well under pressure. So Tina, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you being on Vision.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are you based out of?
I am based out of San Francisco, just outside of San Francisco, but I always add that I'm an East Coaster. Grew up in Philly, lived in DC, New York for a long time. So
all right,
about 9 years. Yeah.
Cool. You represent the melting pot quite well then, coast to coast. I like that. All right. So Tina, I'm going to put you back under pressure a little bit as well. Going back into the marriage story. So you're telling me about your marriages, and the reason why is because you had mentioned to me before that your husband was a tennis coach and you were helping his players learn how to actually overcome the pressure that they faced. And was that your second husband that we were wrapping up?
Yes.
Okay.
My second husband.
Of how many years marriage?
Now it's 10. It's 10 years.
10. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very different.
Well, a lot of pressure in marriage. You know, one of 34, one of 10 years, there's a lot of pressure that builds up in there too. So if you're listening in, you're married, you have a significant other, then this certainly applies to you as well. So without further ado, Tina, who should be listening today other than the people that I talked about? What are the circumstances they might be in? Who should they listen? Why should they listen to you rather? And what do you think they're going to get out of today's call?
I have one of those topics where, what I teach is for everybody. But
Mhm.
for marketing, that's certainly not the riches are in the niches, and who do you focus on? But honestly, I really love working with big minds. I like working with entrepreneurs, people that have big visions, that have a lot going on. They have complicated lives. They have complicated relationships and people in their lives and people perhaps that they're managing. And so I've been doing this work for honestly 40 years. And over the years, I've met many, 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 many people and sat and listened really and took in what are the kind of the common themes that people struggle with. And what you and I were talking about, and one of the reasons I took Stephen's course is I was always interested in how do we actually change. We could talk, 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 talk. And in my early years, when I was a beginning practitioner, that's how I was taught. I was taught to ask questions and wait for answers. And I did a TEDx talk last year, and it was called "Befriend Your Inner Enemy," and it was
Woo!
really kind of my path as a clinician, how I started, because I used to say to these young women, worked with women with eating disorders, and it was like, I hear you, but I don't feel you. And if I don't
Mm.
feel you, you're not going to change. So coming back to who do I love to work with, what are they going to get out of today's show? Anybody who would like to perform at a higher level. I work with people who are already, many are already at the top of their game. But as you know, and as certainly as I know, there's always more learning, there's always more refinement. And I like to say to the leaders that I work with, wouldn't you want to be the person where everybody says, I love working for that person? You know, I want to stay here. I don't want to leave this company. And my other kind of sort of, they call it a stealth mission, is when I work with high performers and high people in higher positions, they influence everybody else below them. So if the leader
Mm.
buys in, the company buys in. I was just listening to your sponsors, and I'm sure that the people that you're working with, they have both the head and the heart. And so the other piece of
Exactly.
my mission is really people who want to make an impact, who have big hearts, um, big visions, so that we can spread this work. Because honestly, it's not easy to change. It's not easy to figure out, how do I do that? I have the same problems that run over and over and over and over and over again, and I just don't know how to shift them. And honestly, I'm really a teacher at heart, and I teach skills. I teach people how to do that.
Ah, I love it. All right. And so with one of the things that caught me most about what you said is that you took Stephen Kotler's course. And I know a lot of self-proclaimed experts who don't take their competitors' courses, so to speak. Don't want to learn from the other gurus out there. They want to hide that. They don't want to admit that they learned something from so and so who's still alive or still in the same body. Like, that's one of the greatest signs of somebody who's kind of losing their edge as an expert is somebody who's hiding and worried about the other math teacher who could compete against them rather than the other math teacher who can provide more formula to the equation. So I'm glad you shared that openly. And I love that saying, I hear you, but I don't feel you. Right. I'm sure that you deliver that with empathy and with love. And I think that's an important thing for I think if people in society learn to address that correctly with more of their relationships, it would probably create a whole lot of more profound relationships and understanding amongst people. So I hear you, but I don't feel you. What a
There's two
brilliant
things
line.
that you also said, Jason. In terms of competition, I've lived in very big cities, and I started over. Every time I moved, I had to start over, because this was before we could do internet work. And if I left my practice, then I left my people. And I went, particularly when I moved into New York City, and people said, "You know how many therapists there are here? You know how many people that do?" I said, "Do you know how many people need help? Infinite number of people that need help." So there's no competition with this work. That's number
Right.
one. And number two, I'm always looking for, and this is something again for your people. I'm always looking for what I don't know. What are the pieces that I've missed? I have a problem. I have something in front of me. Well, I only know what I know. I'm
Yep.
pretty intuitive. I'm actually really intuitive, but I still only know what I know. And so you might know something that I don't know. If I'm
Right.
moving my business along, or you have expertise, or you have done studies, or you have knowledge that I could just fill in the blanks. And that's actually why I did Stephen's course, because I was looking for what is new, what don't I know, what haven't I studied yet, how can I fill in the blanks? So
Yes.
that's kind of, and
Absolutely. Go ahead.
yeah, no, and that just draws me to the next learning. When I go to reach for something, oh, if I only knew how to do this. Okay, who knows how to do this? Okay, where can I find it? And then I'll turn around and there'll be a magazine, or there'll be a book, or there'll be somebody will be mentioning, oh, have you studied with blah blah blah? It's like, oh my God. So
Yes. Well, and I
it's
think
that like,
the other thing that I loved about what you said, you talked about asking the people, the leaders that you're working with, wouldn't you love to know that people love working with you? And they want to stay because of you. And I think that the world's going through a wonderful shift towards light in this regard, in that there's this old stigma that if people love you, they will not fear you. If they do not fear you, you cannot control them. You cannot then be an authority. You never want to be friends with your kids. You never want to be friends with your employees. Don't talk about religions, politics. There's all these rules to constrain and confine relationships. But the job market is far more competitive, and it's easier to find a job than ever before. And that's leading, I think, all of that and many other factors are leading people to this, what do they call it, the great transition. I forget the name of it, of all the people who are moving works and jobs. But what's also, I think, happening is more leaders are becoming more open to what it is that you're teaching. And so I'm glad to see you online creating videos, expanding your resources and capabilities for people to learn. Because I think one of the questions that a lot of the, probably more so the older generations, 35 and older, I'm going to include myself in that, they wonder, like, well, then how do you do this successfully, to where you transition from an authoritarian approach to leadership to a leadership where people love you, but you don't lose
it,
control
it, it's
over the operation?
it's yeah, it's such a great question, and I do have some things that I'd love to share about it.
Go ahead, all yours.
So I have a big background in group dynamics. Okay, I
In
love group
which?
dynamics.
Group
Group
dynamics.
dynamics.
Group. Okay.
Watching people and what roles they take, and who takes the leadership role, and who gets scapegoated, and actually, if you studied yourself in a group, you would find yourself somewhere in one of these roles.
Hmm.
I like to say that a leader has about as much room as a crease on a pair of pants. Every group loves the leader. Every group wants a leader, and every group wants to kill the leader off. So you get too strong, and then they're going to scapegoat you. You're going to become too authoritarian, and then somebody's going to go after you. You're too soft and too democratic, then you're a pushover. So there's a
Ooh, it's hard.
fine balance. It's very hard. It's very hard. And now, in your generation and younger, we want our leaders to be authentic. We want them to be real. We want them to be transparent, which is even harder because now you don't have those gatekeepers that are just keeping people away from you. They want to see you. They want to shake your hand. They want to know how your kids are. They want to know. So I like to think about it's a very much like a role like a parent. And we used to call it, I worked many years ago with women with eating disorders, and it was the nurturing authoritative parent. And you liken it to, I didn't make this up, but I love it. It's like the great bear mother. Sometimes, she licks her cubs, and sometimes she's very nurturing, and sometimes she smacks them and sends them out of the cave.
Mm,
It's all love.
right.
It's all love, right? So we never,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say there's one always never right answer. You have to be able to assess the situation. What
Right.
do they need? What do they need from me at this moment in time? That's one thing.
Yep.
The other thing is, as humans, we go through very, very difficult situations, sometimes very personal situations. You know, when I was going through my divorce, which is not a pretty one, I
Mm,
wasn't really sitting there and sharing all of the you know the dirty laundry with my clients to make myself more real and more. But after the situation was over and I had learned the lessons that I learned from that divorce, now I could best mentor and counsel other people. Not
mhm.
and sharing my stories as learnings and teachings as
Yep.
opposed to feel sorry for me, you know, I'm going through a really hard time. So again, it's being, and I'll come back to I think the most important thing and the basis of all my work is really to know yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, to know thyself, to know your boundaries, to be able to hold your boundaries when you need to be able to be that tough leader because I said so. Because I've done the
Mm,
research. And this is, this is my position and this is my decision and I'm going to stand by it. And you may not be happy with me, but in the best interest of our company and our people, this is what's going to happen. Other times I maybe tell me, I can shift and I can move and I can change and I can hear you. And I'm going to take what you're saying and I'm going to make it into, when we're really going to do something with it. So if you don't know yourself and you don't know how things hit you, and you're working from the outside in, what everybody wants from you, and you're not going to be authentic, you're not going to be
yeah.
real, and people are not going to get you and they're not going to love you.
Yes. I think that's the challenge with teaching people who are younger to the reality of so everybody thinks they know themselves. Who doesn't know themselves? And until you don't, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about myself. And you go through this type of crisis. And I've been twice divorced, and in both experiences, learning to look back and reflect on, what did I do wrong in these situations? What could I have done better? What lessons can I learn from this to protect my future relationships and build those up? Those are the types of questions that I chose, to gravitate towards, and
That's
and choose to focus on, because at the end of the day, that's what I have control over.
that's
That's the one thing I can fully impact, is what I do next. So there's the there's a self-awareness, and then I love that you tied it right to the situational awareness as well, that sometimes comes with practice. But this is also why elite leaders have advisors and strategists,
that's
and
right.
I say plural because they usually have a council of, what do we do in this situation, what are our options. Different people can see different views. That's where it's incredibly important to have somebody like Tina Greenbaum or more on your side. So let's look at your vision for those you serve in 30 seconds. What's your vision? What's the outcome look like for these individuals?
The outcome is very much of what we were just talking about, that somebody is confident, self-assured, knows themselves really well, is a really good listener. I think that
I box you
you
in a little bit. Let me unbox you a little bit. So where are they at currently? And then where are they headed? Let's paint
very
the full
good.
scope of the vision.
So I'll start with one of my clients who was a CTO, who is a CTO of a cybersecurity company,
Mm,
and he started working with me. When he got this position, I was the first person that he called. He said, "I want you to be my coach." He said, "I don't need the help with the technical stuff." He said, "I've got hundreds of people behind me. I need your help with the people stuff." And the only person that really intimidated him was the CEO of the company.
mm.
Now, the CEO didn't know that, but he shared that with me. That when he would get reprimanded in some way, shape, form, or another, he would go back to feeling like a little kid.
Hmm.
he was being scolded by. So again, because of my history as a therapist, I know that territory really well, and we didn't have to spend a lot of time back there. But tell me a little bit about your parents. Tell me a little bit growing up. Well, they were immigrants. They were, if the A wasn't good enough, why wasn't it an A plus? So this perfectionistic, and he was very smart. So they expected, even more of him. And so what we worked on really was how to manage that feeling that he was feeling like he was caving.
Mm.
And so we could go back into some of the early stuff, but it was also kind of being able to be aware of when that happened. So in my TED talk, I at the end of it, I created a little mantra, and it goes like this. It goes: cut, reframe, response.
Mm.
So the body gets triggered before the mind. And this is the important piece. Right? So again, talk. Okay, I'm not changing. The body gets triggered. I notice that my body is starting to tighten up. Okay, so what's going on? Let me just stop. I liken it to like a movie. The movie's running. All right, let's just stop it and then go frame by frame by frame. What's going on here? Let me notice what's happening in my body and my mind, and what am I feeling? What are my thoughts? Oh, I just got triggered by this guy. Oh, let me take a pause. And now, how do I want to respond? How do I choose to respond? And so he just practiced that over and over and over again, just recognizing when the trigger would come. And then I've got lots of skills and lots of different techniques and ways to be able to manage that. So now I have access. Now I have access to my unconscious, because that's where everything happens. It kind of runs underneath here. And so now I can have, command of myself. And then that builds confidence. And so somebody said to me, I'm actually just starting to work next week with another person in his company. And he said, how does Christos have this Zen-like nature to him? He didn't always have that. And he didn't always feel it inside. And he is a leader that everybody loves. Truly.
Mm.
Truly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little selfish right now. So I had an experience that caught me off guard quite a bit at the conference at Icon Maker Live. So I was introducing myself, and I was ready to go. I usually try new things when I introduce myself. It depends on the room. It depends on the intuition that hits. And I found myself trembling and near crying as I was doing this introduction, and my brain and my heart are going, what the heck? Why is this happening? And at the same, like, I finished my introduction and I did fine, but I said something to the degree of, my name is Jackson. I grew up with my mom and 5 older sisters. I've never fit in, but I belong. And then I continued with my story. I'd never said it before. I'd never really kind of gotten to that thought process, but I just knew. I just had this strong feeling that somebody in the room, or some people in the room, needed to hear that message. But it was like I needed it too. It was really weird. But I'm like, I wasn't supposed to be trembling, in this moment. I wasn't supposed to feel caught off guard by this. I mean, I was so ready to deliver this and then continue my talk with power. And I ended up finding myself finishing whatever it was I was saying, and kind of lost, but more so than anything, just kind of like in that moment of instability. Like I would not have wanted to shoot a free throw in that moment. I felt very shaky. And so what came to my mind was, okay, I got to regroup. I got to reframe. I was using kind of some of these essence, like these aspects, to get back on track. But thank goodness the pressure had been taken off of me and was gone to the next person. But I remember kind of thinking, how do you get yourself centered fast? When you have that type of a moment, because I was almost more animalistic in nature
Yes.
rather than feeling like I was in a powerful state of control, I felt like I was losing control.
Well, actually, so the way that I'm hearing it is
Yeah.
you actually touched your heart and you connected so deeply to what you were saying.
Yeah.
You know, it was very real, and it
Right.
was, and that was
Super.
what came out, right? And so, two things. One thing, when I start to cry, like unexpectedly, which is kind of what you're describing,
Hmm.
I have learned to say, wow, I have a lot of feeling about that.
Yeah.
Just being real.
Huge.
Wow, I didn't expect that. And then you would have pulled them in even more because you would have been so real that you didn't have to cover up. You see, our
Right.
vulnerability is our strength.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
have learned the opposite, especially as males. I have three sons,
Mm,
and three with big hearts that have had to kind of navigate that world, that male world,
yeah.
being strong and being this and being that, But honestly, if you had just, wow, that surprised me, and then just take a deep breath, give me a minute, give me a moment.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what I want to share with you. Right? Do you feel the energy of it?
Yes, and I think we have an unfair advantage in that regard as males because if we even scratch the surface, of that, people powerfully, like recognize that, so it did kind of have that effect. And I see what you're saying too, though. It would be nice to be able to dive deeper into that moment. And I hope if you're listening to this and you're not at the free throw line in the championship, then do it, go for it. Right. So I'm with you on that. There's a healthy balance of making
Okay,
sure
so
that you're going to that.
let's just say, Jackson, we are at the free throw line,
Yeah.
okay? And then this comes over us. So what you might do is notice it. Wow, I'm going to come back to that. I got to come back to
Yes.
that because that kind of shocked me, and I don't know where it came from, and I want to do some work on that. I want to revisit it. Okay, so now if I'm at the free throw line, it means that I have done this thousands and thousands and thousands of times. This is where we go back into the flow. That when you practice something over and over and over and over and over again, you do not have to think about it. Your body takes over, and your body will do it. So
Mhm.
that's why so many athletes have rituals. The tennis players, how many times do they bounce a ball? They don't bounce it
Mhm.
sometimes, maybe 3 times, sometimes 6 times. No, many times they'll bounce it 3 times or they'll bounce it 4 times. And so the body mind learns the ritual. There you go. Okay.
That's for
The body mind learns the ritual. Okay. You just take a moment, take a breath. Okay. And then you do your thing. So,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh, that's
not
so
one right.
neat because as a kid, you learn the rituals by watching people, or you learn the rituals because the coach tells you to learn the ritual, but you don't necessarily know the why. And so if you're in tune with this ritual centers me, right? If you know that, then it allows you to program much faster to being aligned with your state of success.
That's right. And that's how the athletes, get to do these repetitive things and do it. So, I'm out here in San Francisco and I love basketball. And, if you watch Stephen Curry or you watch this one of that, that you watch the rituals, how many times they do this and how many times. And it's just because honestly, what happens is it quiets down the chatter side of the brain. When you
Mhm.
practice something over and over and over again, in the beginning, you're thinking it. If you think of a beginning driver, they have to look in the mirror. They have to do that. They have to think. I just got a new car that has a new kind of way of, changing the gears. And so forward is park, back is drive. Now I've been doing it
Oh.
about 30 days, and now it's becoming more automatic.
Mhm.
Think think it, and then let the brain take over time, 30 to 40 days to create a new habit. And then we can start to depend on it. We don't, and then that frees our mind up to do other things.
I love it.
So it's just, yeah, all
Ah,
kinds
it's
of
very
really
cool.
great stuff.
Well, awesome. Thanks for diving in with me on that. And let's shift gears dramatically. Let's go right into what's your worst business experience ever, Tina?
Well, unfortunately, they came in a series.
Oh yeah.
or kind of the worst possible things that could happen at one time. So when I moved out to California, let me just back up just a teeny bit. For all the years that I was married, I was in private practice. And every time I started, I moved, I started over another private practice. And
Right.
when I got divorced, I knew, and I have a very entrepreneurial mind, I knew that if I didn't scale my business, I could never retire, because it would always be one on one on one on one on one. So I started this journey on how to scale my business. And the first amount of money that I took Harv Ecker's Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And then I started doing trainings and coaching and this and that. And then I moved to California, and I had already started this tennis business with my husband in New York. And we were starting to get it off the ground. When I came here, I'm not that great of a tennis player. You would never look at me and say, oh my God, where did you learn how to do that? And so it kind of wasn't working. So I started to switch over to, people started to ask me, can you teach this in business? The same skills, the sports psychology skills. And anyway, so I did that. I had a bookkeeper that I was still using from New York. And I get a notice one day from the IRS that I'm being audited. So I sent her a note, and she says, don't worry. She was way out of her game. I didn't know it. I thought she was handling it. By January, now it wasn't just an audit thing. Now it was in the hands of the court, because we hadn't answered the thing. So I had that going on. Then in my pursuit of scaling this business, again, I'm looking like who can help me. Now I'm not a little kid. I'm like 60 something years old. It's like, I don't have years and years and years and years. If I have somebody help me do this and then this and then this, theoretically, the business would have taken off. My mistake was the coaches that I found and the people that I found were people who had been very successful in their fields, but were starting a new business, a new thing. So there was a woman who was a great speaker. She was starting a speaker bureau. So I gave her $1,000, to represent me as a speaker. That her business went belly up. Then another guy had these great visions of blah, blah, blah. That went belly up. So here I was in with the IRS and these people that I was giving all this money to that didn't deliver. And I do my work, and if I'm being taught somebody and somebody gives me homework, I do it. And I'm doing this stuff and I'm doing this stuff and then I hired another guy, even more money, who was just so incredibly successful, and just pieces of the business that I picked up. So so by the time I finished, I was $40,000 in debt between the IRS and the money that I had given to these coaches that didn't deliver. Right. And I was mad. I was like really, really, really mad. It's like, I don't usually blame people, because I where did I go wrong? What did I, what's my part? What did I miss here? The lessons that I learned was, and I'm still having to be very cautious of it, is the next red shiny object, the next person that's going to be able to help me take my business to the heights of my vision, which is to impact. I don't have a number on it, but I truly believe that if people learn these skills, it is the key to world peace. Literally, right? So I have a very big vision, and I have courses that I've created. I have a 3-month course that I created, and all the marketing and the high-end people and all this kind of stuff. There's so much to learn.
Yeah.
And I really, really want to impress that to I did my private practices. Shortest it took me was 7 months, the longest was a year and a half. I got them up and running, and I never had to do another thing because I had the referrals coming. But to actually scale this business, I was way out of my league, really, in terms. And then comes the internet and all the content and the blogging and the LinkedIn and the this and the that. And it's like, all I really want to do is this. I love what we're doing.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And so, and yet I have a very big vision. I just keep going because that's just who I am. So that was the worst period in my business. And then little by little by little, I just pulled back, got a different bookkeeper, accountant, and just started to take my time, being very aware of this tendency of mine to think that somebody's going to help me get there faster. It's going to go as it's going to go. You know, there's a wonderful book called Who, Not How. And
Yes.
it really is who you know and the relationships that you build. I just had a situation with one of my kids, and we needed some really big help. And just by my changing gears and building these fabulous relationships that I have, we were, you know, the ambassador to here and this person to that, and I get all these people that were kind of coming in to help us, and that was just from changing gears and just being me and helping where I can, and trying to get the best help and being very mindful of my pocketbook.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you brought up so much wisdom and truth in what you just talked about by sharing that vulnerable story about the 4 people that you hired, the shiny ball aspect, probably being a part of that, and then also sharing the book. I will caution many of you. I love the concept of who, not how, but I have my own take on that saying, and it's very important for many of you to hear. And that's, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and then it's what you know.
That's right.
And I
That's
can't
right.
stress that enough. You have to know your stuff, because if you get in front of that who and you fall on your face, you're toast. You're done. So you still
Absolutely.
have to know, or have to be able to have the discipline to figure it out. And so those are really important concepts: who, not how,
Yes.
and then how. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yes. I made that assumption, but yes, if you're not at the top of your game,
yeah,
forget it.
yeah,
I mean, there
exactly.
are people that will help you. I mean, you know, you have to want to grow. You have to want to
Yes.
help people. You have to want
Well,
to
and you didn't
be.
make an assumption. You gave a full formula, a full aspect. It's something that I don't ever hear talked about, which is why I coined the term. I was like, this is something that, especially young people, a lot like myself, when I was younger, and I was very talented, I was very gifted, but I wasn't developing myself the way that I should have in my early years, and that came back to bite me. I had to figure out more of the how, along the way, and so you learn things, bits of wisdom through your failures, and through your challenges. Now, you also brought up, this aspect of moving at a not necessarily a slower pace, but more methodically. It reminds me of the poster that Greg Popovich has on the Spurs locker room, which talks about the miner, the guy who's hitting a rock with a pickaxe, and he does it hundreds of times, and without seeing any sign of change whatsoever, and until the final blow. And it's not the final blow that caused it to happen, it's the hundreds before, but you
Right.
just got to keep going, and it doesn't matter if you see the result or not. If you're exercising the virtue, the results will come. If you do not stop, you have to keep at it, until you get that outcome that you want. So yeah.
Absolutely. You know how many times I've heard, what's the book, the gold, 5 feet from gold or 10 feet from gold or
Ah,
something like that.
one of
Yeah.
those two.
Every time people quit, the reason they quit just before they're getting ready to be successful. And I just got a very good sized contract, and I was laughing because it was actually 8 years to the day that I
Mhm.
created Mastery Under Pressure. Right. I'm an overnight success. 8 years to the day. And,
Wow.
you know,
Timing's a funny thing.
But and at the same time, I also want to I have so much work that I have developed over those 8 years that I'm so proud of. So,
Absolutely, you have, and you've built everything that you've done has brought you to this point. And in one short interview with me, you were able to unlock some fantastic realities for me to pull my own abilities to handle pressure together, which is awesome, and I thank you dearly for that. And if people, if you want to connect further with Tina, then of course, Mastery Under Pressure, her website is a great way to do that through the links as well in the show notes. Also, Tina, where can they reach out to you if they want to reach out personally? LinkedIn, Facebook, one of those?
LinkedIn is best.
Okay.
Yes. Or
LinkedIn.
Tina at Mastery Under Pressure.
So go ahead and reach out to her via email as well. She suggested that. And I would like to,
Jackson.
Go ahead.
Jackson, I'll add one more thing. I also have a quiz. It's masteryunderpressure.net.
Okay.
And then people can kind of see where they are on the things that I teach.
Perfect. Well, then definitely go take the quiz. Go see how this, where you end up in terms of being able to handle pressure yourself. I will provide one more tidbit of wisdom for everybody listening in. May this serve you all, including Tina, which is her story reminded me a lot of the E-Myth. It's I call that book the book that I regret, the only book I regret not reading the moment it hit my desk. It took me 8 years too long to read it. And it talks about this experience that Tina had, that I've had, that almost every entrepreneur I know has had, in terms of we hire people not irresponsibly, but with what he calls delegation by abdication. And we don't learn enough about the roles in order to delegate responsibly. And therefore we end up with a result that doesn't quite make sense. We do have, and I don't promote this, we do have a 2.5-hour webinar that I put together for marketing to help people understand all the different components of marketing, what to look for in the market, what to hire, and why we do what we do. And I wish more entrepreneurs would take the time to realize it's going to save them years, as well as 20 to 30 different interviews, if they were to go through and see exactly how this stuff works that they don't want to know. But what it ultimately then frees you up to do is sit in your leadership chair and do it, knowing that you finally learned what you need to learn to bring the right type of leaders to support you. So Tina, this was amazing. Thanks for teaching us as much as you could in such a short time about working under pressure and overcoming the pressures that you face. Again, if Vision Pros, as you come across the different pressures that you face, if you do not have confidants on your side that can help you understand, not only understand that, of course, you need to overcome the pressure, but understand how to overcome the pressures, and not only overcome them, but thrive through them, then you definitely need to consider giving Tina a call, reaching out and saying, hey, do you think that you could help me in this situation or with these aspects? And who knows, maybe your favorite and best relationship yet will form. Tina, thank you very much for being here, Vision Pros. You have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you in the next show. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.